Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Greg Schmidt with Precision Roll Grinders, and we're here just to go through another installment of our webinar series. This installment, we talk a lot about calendar rolls. Now, in the past, we've talked a lot about calendar rolls in the paper industry. This webinar talks a bit more about the other industries. You know, we're not just a company that's servicing the paper, but we service a variety of different industries. Any industry with a calendar roll, we do that service work. Now, calendar rolls you see in a variety of processes, the rubber, paper, plastics, non-wovens are just to name a few of them. And calendar rolls are a critical component in your process. It is directly contributing to the caliper of your final product, the smoothness, in almost all manufacturing processes. So they are an extremely important roll position in your machine, and they have to be done properly to make sure that your final product is coming out the way it should be. At PRG, we look at all the services we provide you, and one of those services is coming in to look at how we're improving your process. If we are not improving your process and providing economic value to it, then we are not doing our job correctly. We want to come in there, do a study, and show you how we are providing that value. We follow the DMAIC process to do these studies. We work with our customers to form a design of experiment and the process that we want to use. We look at the measurements or the current process before and after doing a roll change. And this data can come either directly from the customer using their equipment on site that they may already collect data with, or we will come in and collect that data ourselves. There have been case studies in the past where we have come in with customers and collected thousands of data points manually, which was necessary to show that before and after change. We use the Six Sigma style process and Minitab to analyze that data, and then we want to look at the change that we made, and you want to figure out how you can control that process. And that, in some cases, can actually lead to a predictive equation. You know, being able to tell you when to change those rolls out, when the correct time, when the correct time to change them out is, or a result of wear, or whatever it may be. At PRG, for these studies, we have a dedicated team of application engineers. We come in to work with customers to design those experiments, and you know, this is our job to do this. So we are dedicated full time to helping make these studies happen. With your calendar rolls, it is so important to have quality calendar rolls to reduce the variation in your product in terms of caliper, and as well as maintaining the surface and optical properties of the calendar roll. A lot of times that's overlooked, but the surface finish and the properties of that roll are just as important as the dimension or geometries of the grind itself. Another thing of precision roll grinders is that we always grind the rolls with the bearings removed. We grind on the journals of the rolls. This is incredibly important to reduce the variation in that grind. This picture here on the left, it is not uncommon to see even a freshly ground roll be that out of round as a result of being ground in bearings. All those clearances in the bearings, clearances between the bearings and the housings, that all adds up. And so even though the roll is ground and it may appear while it's being ground to be within spec, in reality it's not, because all those clearances in the bearings and the housings and journals and around it are adding up to produce that variation in the grind. Again, if a calendar roll is not done properly, you can see variation or barring if you're talking paper. This can cause a huge amount of strength variation. And then outside of paper, you can be looking at the caliper variation, and all of this contributes to, you know, material losses and a variety of other problems in your process. This is a good example of where the material losses come in. This is what you might expect to see with a poorly ground or worn out calendar roll. You're going to see a very wavy caliber variation around that target spec. Now, with a properly ground calendar roll, you can reduce those high spots, and that is all material savings. And when you look at it, on a singular graph like that, you may think that, oh, this is not a lot of material savings, it's not significant. But when you do the math beyond that and look at that little bit of material thickness being reduced in material savings over the course of, say, a year, it can easily add up to hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on what you are producing with those calendar rolls. Concentricity is another thing that we focus on a lot with our grinds. It's very easy to overlook, but it's just as important as the rest, any other part of the roll geometry. If you don't have good concentricity, you're going to see that show up in your final product. So along with the grinds, we briefly mentioned the surface finishes. This is just a example with some of our customers, the finishes we can provide. In this case, you can all see they're very, very low. I think it's important to mention that although these are very low surface finishes and they're difficult to reach, we can do these consistently every single time. We do these surface finishes for customers every single time they need calendar roll done. And to add on to that, these are very low numbers. You also see customers that require a very rough surface finish, and we can also provide that consistently, which it may seem or be not intuitive, but a rough surface finish is oftentimes even more difficult to achieve than a smooth one. So, we have a lot of practice and over 50 years of experience at Precision Roll Grinders in getting these surface finishes within that range that you need them to be every single time we grind those calendar rolls. And again, with poorly ground rolls, you're gonna see the cost coming out in your final product. You're gonna see the expense of material losses, you're gonna see the expense of scrap losses, and you're gonna see expense of rolls that aren't lasting as long too. It is not uncommon for some of our calendar rolls in certain applications to last well beyond a year. And whereas another calendar roll that, hasn't been ground to, say, in the paper industry, an OEM spec of 2/10, you're going to see that last, maybe 6 months or less. So, the cost of shutting down the mill, pulling out those rolls, installing the new set, it all adds up very, very quickly. At PRG's, we don't just do the grinds. We're a full roll service shop. So you can see this is just a list of a few of the repairs and services that we offer in-house here. We can do everything here. One of the very important aspects that we deal with is the bearings and housings. You have to make sure those bearings are in good condition, the housings are in good condition. You can have a perfect roll grind, but if those bearings and housings aren't to spec, then you're going to experience similar issues as if the roll was not ground properly. So we take the bearing condition very seriously. We work with all your OEM bearing manufacturers and actually have representatives from those bearing manufacturers come to our facility and inspect your bearings before they're installed to determine if they can continue to be run in your process or if they need to be replaced or rebuilt or whatever repair they recommend. We also do the heated roll rebuilds. It's important to make sure all the passageways are clean. You want to have that uniform temperature control. If you don't have that, you're going to have what they call thermal runout, where the geometry roll is going to be changing because of that heat difference. So we do complete rebuilds of those. We make sure the passageways are clean. Your coolant or not necessarily coolant or your heated fluid is running smoothly throughout that roll, and you're getting an even temperature distribution all the way across it. We talked about the life earlier. This is a great graph that we show all the time. This was an actual study that was done at a customer of ours. You can see with a roll that was ground to 8/10, it only lasted 6 months, because you can see how short of a time period it had to wear beyond that regrind point. Whereas a roll that starts down at 2/10,000s it takes a much, much longer time before it's even at a 8/10 out of specness, and then before it hits that regrind point. So you can see as a result of, just 6/10 less, how much more time that gives you, a year, in fact, in this case. Again, these are just some glimpses of some of the studies we've done. We've done calendar roll studies and studies outside of calendar rolls in a variety of different industries with a variety of customers. We've done them in the rubber industry. In this case, we've also done a lot of studies with the paper industry. There's not shown here, but we've even done a study where there was only one calendar roll that was done in the calendar stack. So the other one was an older calendar roll, and then we had a freshly ground calendar roll in that stack. And even that was showing improvements. And you can only imagine if both of them were done at the same time, what kind of improvements you would have seen. And all of these studies that you see on the screen are all available on our website. You can contact us. We can email them, send them to you, whatever you'd like, if you'd like to read them in detail. But they're all available, and we're more than happy to provide them to you. Another example, we've done them in plastic calendaring. Again, also available if you want to read through these in detail and see what kind of improvements and savings resulted from the study. So again, we're here to show that economic value. That is our commitment to our customers. We want to show how this is improving your process. Bottom line, that's what we want to do. By putting in those properly ground calendar rolls, it's reducing a variable in your process. It's one less thing you have to wonder whether or not it's affecting your process, and it's also just reducing the variation in your product. So as always, we have 4 different facilities that we service facilities worldwide with, South America, Europe, wherever you are, we will deliver to you and we will work with you. We have our Allentown, Pennsylvania, our Carrollton, Georgia, Lewisport, Kentucky, and Texarkana, Arkansas. If you can reach us at any time, if it's an emergency, you can always just call up your respective account manager, and we will expedite your process and make sure we get your line back up and running as quickly as possible. So with that, I just want to thank you all for your time. I will stay on here for a bit, and if there are any questions, feel free to type them in the chat, and I can answer you privately if you would like. But yeah, I'll stay on for a second. If there are any questions, please put them in there. And otherwise, thank you all for attending, and we will see you on the next webinar. Thanks again.